Halloween is just around the corner, and if you've been in the watch community for the last few years, you know that means that Spinnaker is going to be releasing a new 50 Phantoms watch. Once again, they've partnered up with subversive watch artist Second Second, and this year it looks like we're in for a ghoul hunt. This is going to be a fun video. Take a quick look at the watch and then we'll get into it. Hey guys, this is Dave. Welcome back to my channel, Just the Watch. As always, I'm recording from my home in Iwate, Japan, and I have in for review today the 2025 edition of the Second Second / Spinnaker collaboration, the 50 Phantoms. For those of you who don't know what this watch is, 50 Phantoms is a play on the 50 Fathoms, which was one of the original dive watches that were ever created. Spinnaker has been making something of an homage to the 50 Fathoms for many years in the Spinnaker Fleusse. There's a clear design inspiration from the 50 Fathoms. And I believe starting about 3 years ago, they did a collaboration with French artist Second Second, who kind of started by modifying watches and then sort of doing a little bit of almost like graffiti to a watch. So he would take existing watches, he would modify them, and just do clever things with them. And so it makes perfect sense and a lot of fun that they would get together and create the 50 Phantoms watch. One thing to note is that Spinnaker is doing two editions of this watch. There is a 40mm version and a 43mm version. There are more differences than just the size. So keep that in mind if you're interested in picking up one of these two watches. Spinnaker sent me the 40mm version. This is one they sent for free. I get to keep it. That's why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this video. However, as always, they had no control over the content of this video. This is now the third year in a row that Spinnaker and Second Second have collaborated to create the 50 Phantoms watch. And it seems like each year that they do this, they have to get more creative and more elaborate to try and one-up what they did the year before. The original 50 Phantoms simply had 50 ghosts on the dial of the watch. This year's design is even more elaborate, and like I mentioned before, it has this kind of fun treasure hunt or ghoul hunt built into the watch itself, which I'm going to let you guys play along with today. I'm going to try and make this a no spoilers review, but let me explain exactly what I mean by this ghoul hunt. So on the dial of the watch, it says, rather than 50 Phantoms, it says 47 plus 3 Phantoms. And I think that's the clue to what the theme of this watch is. Now, I went over the macro footage and I counted very carefully. There are exactly 47 of those little ghost figures on the dial of this watch. And so what that little inscription on the dial that says 47 plus 3 Phantoms to me seems to be indicating is that there are 3 more Phantoms hidden somewhere on the watch. And that makes the watch itself something of a game. You could kind of hand it to someone and say, hey, can you find the extra 3 ghosts on this watch? And I'm going to let you guys play that game today. I won't point out verbally where those extra ghosts are. If you watch this review closely, you will see all 50 ghosts. And so what I'd like you guys to do is watch the video, and when you think you see the 50th ghost revealed, comment the timestamp down below. And then if you want to find the answer, you can go down to the description of this video. At the very bottom of the description, I'll show exactly when the 50th ghost was revealed in the video. But there is one thing that kind of throws off my theory about this game, and that's that I think I found 51 Phantoms on this watch. So I'm curious if any of you guys also see 51 Phantoms on this watch. So I'm excited to check this out. I hope you guys have fun with this. We're going to start this off with the very first black light unboxing in my channel's history. So because even starting with the packaging, there's little Easter eggs that really only show up under a black light. So let's go from there, and then we'll take a look at the 50 Phantoms 2025 edition. One of the big ideas of this entire collaboration is the way that everything plays with light and darkness. On the watch itself, the packaging, and even the included accessories, you'll find elements that are either UV reflective or luminescent. The result is that under normal light, everything tends to look a little bit muted, kind of ghostly and low contrast. You don't really see all of the elements super clearly, but then either in the dark or under a UV black light, everything really pops. And while this is a super fun concept, as we'll see in a minute, it does result in some legibility issues in the daylight. But let's take a quick look at what's included in the package. Once you open everything up, you can see that you have a nice little insert that shows off both the watch and the first goodie, which is an included extra strap. And the extra strap is perfect. This is a glow-in-the-dark paratrooper style elastic strap. is just the absolute perfect strap to pair with a watch like this. Next, you'll notice that underneath the strap, there's a little compartment that holds another important accessory. This is a little UV pen light. It runs on a single AAA battery, and it's just a great portable thing that you can carry around with you to either charge the lume up or to search around for those UV reflective elements of the watch. And I think that, along with the strap, are just two great accessories to go along with this watch. I'm so glad that they included those with it. Let's take a little bit of time to look at this watch in the daylight first before we turn the lights back off and have a little bit more fun in the dark. Under normal lighting, you'll see that the color scheme here is dominated by very low contrast grays and silvers, with the majority of the stainless steel case, bezel, and bracelet all being covered in brushed surfaces. Likewise, the dial itself is done in a textured silvery gray color, with a swarm of white ghosts covering it. And sitting above that, you'll see a silver handset with white lume paint. So all of these elements are meant to evoke kind of a spectral, ghost-like look to the watch. And with there being so little contrast between the elements of the watch, everything does feel indistinct and a little bit ethereal. It's the kind of thing that's a great idea from an artistic standpoint, but maybe not particularly functional if you do want to use it as a watch. The legibility is not that bad, but it is definitely a lot more difficult to read than a typical watch would be. One of the standout features of this watch is the bezel. They've done something extremely unique here, and I've never seen a bezel like this done on a watch before. The top of the bezel features a very distinct ripple pattern going around it, with the sides of it being completely smooth. It kind of functions a little bit like a scalloped bezel like you would find on some watches from Omega, but this is really something that's completely unique and totally its own. That ripple pattern is meant to call to mind the bottom edges of a ghost's, sheet. Think of the ghosts that chase Pac-Man around and the little frayed edges at the bottom of there. That's what this bezel is supposed to kind of look like. And you'll notice this at every angle. You'll see it most prominently from the side, where you can see how deep those ripples are, but even from the top, those ridges will catch the light in different ways, and it just looks really interesting and really cool. Surprisingly, it's pretty easy to get a grip on it, even though the edges are completely smooth. Because the ridges on the top are so high, it's pretty easy for your fingers to fit into those grooves to get a good grip to turn it. And when you do, you get a very satisfying bezel action. This is a 120-click unidirectional bezel. It's a high-quality one. Everything turns nicely and locks into place. This is a functional 60-minute dive time bezel. However, again, because of the low contrast, it's a little bit difficult to use in daylight. The top of the bezel has a silver brushed sunray finish with white lume paint in it. The case itself has a bowl shape to the bottom of it that gives off some vintage vibes with somewhat chunky lugs coming off of it. There are some bevels along the corners of those lugs, and that's where you're going to find one of the few polished elements of this watch. Everything else is pretty much fully brushed. Flipping over to the back of the watch, you have a glass see-through case back that allows you to see the Miyota 9015 automatic movement, along with a really cool ghost-shaped custom rotor. The rotor is one of the areas of the watch where you'll find both luminescent areas and UV reflective areas. When you hit it with a black light, you'll see the little hash marks marking off the 50 dead phantoms that the watch is commemorating. Well, the eyes of the ghosts are actually lumed glow-in-the-dark paint. As we noted in the unboxing, you get two strap options here. It comes installed with a stainless steel bracelet. This is a fully brushed beads of rice style bracelet. The fully brushed look on a beads of rice bracelet is a little bit unusual, but I think it works really well here. I like it. It's a pretty good quality bracelet as well. The clasp itself isn't particularly impressive, but it is very functional. It's of decent quality. You get a milled inner, but it doesn't have a built-in tool-free micro adjust like a lot of micro brands are doing now, and the clasp only gives you 3 positions for micro adjustments. But what you do get instead is a dive extension. This allows you to quickly pop open an extra hidden link on the back end of the clasp to give you a wider fit, ostensibly so that you could put it on over a wetsuit, although I'm not sure if anybody ever actually uses it for that. Let's go ahead and swap it over to the elastic paratrooper strap. This one is white in the daylight, but once you turn the lights off, it glows with a faint green glow. And this is a really fun, cool effect, but don't get your hopes up on the performance of the lume on the fabric. It's very difficult to get cloth to glow and to work that into the fibers of the cloth. If it's fully charged, it'll glow for a few minutes, but then it fades pretty quickly. But this is one area where I had a lot of fun playing around with that UV pen light. You can almost kind of draw patterns on the strap itself with that pen light. And this kind of became a theme of this watch. Just wearing it, I just had so much fun. There's always something to do, something to look for, something to kind of show off. At one point, I handed it over to my 10-year-old daughter and challenged her to find the ghosts on it. And normally, she's not that interested in my watches, but in this case, she was. She had a lot of fun playing around with it there. It's just a really entertaining and enjoyable thing to carry around on your wrist. Finally, let's move back over to the dial of the watch, and that's where most of the fun is to be found here. 50 Phantoms is just such a great little watch pun. It works great during Halloween time, and it's just been executed perfectly. And I love the fact that they were so careful about making sure that they included exactly 50 Phantoms on the watch in some way. They could have been lazy and just called it the 50 Phantoms and just put a whole bunch of ghosts on there and figured no one would count them, but they seem to be very intentional about that aspect of it. I also really like the sapphire crystal that they've used here. This is a very high boxed sapphire crystal that gives you some nice distortions and reflections. I think it, again, fits with the ethereal theme of the watch. The watch also features a date display at 3 o'clock, and this is an interesting double date display that also has a cyclops to kind of give you some magnification. But like so much else on the watch, it's kind of difficult to read. The date itself is done in gray with white text, so not very much contrast. And again, that's kind of the theme of this watch. In the daylight, everything is very low contrast. It's almost a little bit drab and indistinct. It fits with this idea of ghosts that we often see in fiction of being these ethereal, shimmering, hard to distinguish creatures. But as soon as you turn the lights off, the personality of this watch completely changes. The ghosts come to life with multicolored lume and shades of blue, green, and white, and the silver gray background that once made them hard to distinguish completely disappears, and the watch's true nature really comes to life. This watch from the start was designed to be appreciated at night in the dark. Even that date that was very hard to distinguish in the daylight is actually lumed, and it's actually easier to see when it's been fully charged. Even the bezel comes to life with a fully lumed BGW9 application, giving it a cool blue glow. But even though the design shows a lot more contrast and pop in the darkness, it's still not necessarily a legible design. All of those ghosts swarming around the dial are still very distracting and sometimes make it hard to pick out the handset. But really, legibility isn't the point of this watch. This is a fun, cool design. It's something to be appreciated for its novelty factor, and it is a functional timepiece. It does have good, high-quality components. You can tell the time, but it will make you work for it a little bit. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with a little bit of talk about the value of the watch and the quality of it. Price on this version is $525 for the complete package, and I think that's a good price for everything that they're offering here. They give you a lot of cool accessories. This is a very unique watch, a very unique collaboration. There's a lot of custom components here, and you also have to take into consideration the limited and collectible nature of these watches. And in that light, Spinnaker and Second Second, I think, are giving you a lot for your money here. That said, the overall quality and finishing of the watch is pretty standard from what we've come to expect from Spinnaker, which is to say that it's good, but it's not going to blow your socks off. One area that I did notice a few rough spots was on that bezel, and I imagine that's probably due to the difficulty of manufacturing a bezel of this shape. Under macro, I did notice a few finishing defects, some pitting on some of the edges, but overall it didn't really take away from the actual enjoyment of wearing this watch and experiencing all the fun little Easter eggs hidden in it. If you like the idea of a fun, tongue-in-cheek, Halloween-themed watch, and particularly if you've been eyeing a 50 Phantoms watch over the last couple years as you see each different version come out, this year's is another hit in my opinion. But no matter which way you look at it, it's just a really fun collaboration that I think turned out great. All right, guys, that'll wrap up the review for today. Hopefully I got this out soon enough that you can get in on the pre-order. I believe the pre-order is set to open on October 17th, and like they did last year, they're going to be doing this in 2 batches. So to get the first batch, you have to order quickly. Once those sell out, they will do a second batch, and the second batch will have an unlimited production. So as many people as order it, that's how many watches they'll make. So as long as you order it before the end of the second pre-order, you're guaranteed to get a watch. But after that period is over, they'll close it and they just won't make any more. So I'll leave a link down to Spinnaker's website down below. You can get on that if that's something you're interested in. Anyways, that'll wrap up the review for today. Drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think of this year's Spinnaker/Second Second collaboration. And as always, if you want to get a watch-themed t-shirt like this one, you can pick it up on my website at justthewatch.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.